here on Skiba News Nation. Please like and subscribe, and also share with others so that we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We couldn't do this show without you, so I just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
What it costs. I want to know what the truth is. And I hope that people, my son, anybody, if my name comes up, whether you like me, whether you agree with me or not, at least you could respect the fact that he's on a quest for truth. He's on a quest for truth.
Welcome to Skiba News Nation, bringing you unfiltered views, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And now, here's your host, Jeremiah Skiba, award-winning musician and son of Rob Skiba.
So for those of you who are watching, we already hit 33% funded. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. We're doing it. It's happening.
Yeah.
So,
man, those are so cool.
Jeremiah, yeah, I'm stoked, man. I really think people are going to enjoy this. There's not a lot of great games out there that have a subtle biblical theming to it like this. But also are actually really fun and engaging, just as fun as playing a round of Texas Hold'em poker with your buddies or playing chess with a loved one. It's really, I tried to make something that really could become just as iconic and fun and replayable as Settlers of Catan and Risk and all those family favorites, right? So that is Tribe Total Eclipse. Please go ahead and get your copy. The limited edition is running out, and once it's gone, you will no longer have an opportunity to get one of the first 100 copies of the game.
I'll leave the Kickstarter if you guys want to support that game in the description. It'll be the first thing in the description. So let's get them past that level because it's a really cool game. And let me ask you this. Does the game have to be, like, if somebody's not biblical per se, or they don't, public schools, can they still play it and understand it without knowing the Bible?
Oh, yeah. That's why I said it's subtly themed. Like, you would have to really know about the biblical tribes of Israel to see how some of the artwork references some of those concepts. But on the outside, looking in, it's just a beautiful, fun game. Awesome artwork. I mean, you wouldn't even be able to tell, if you were getting into it. It's not going to make a difference. It's just going to be a fun game to get into. It's got warriors and angelic beings. That's probably the most biblical, in your face it is. It'll have cherubim cards, I call them. But yeah, I mean, it just adds a fun little twist to the game, and I think people will really like it.
Yeah, my girlfriend Lindsay can't wait to bring it to her school. That's why I ask, because sometimes they're real strict about religious stuff. But I figured it wasn't. I mean, it looked like a bunch of games combined into one, and it's all unique, So it'd be cool because then we could get it in we need to get it in every school, Every school has a game. Hey, Skiba News Nation family, welcome to episode 81 of Skiba News Nation, your weekly source of the latest news, controversial topics, conspiracies, forgotten history, and so much more. I'm your host, Jeremiah Skiba, and today we're going to be talking about total solar eclipse and the devil comet, red heifer sacrifice coming soon, the power of language, the immigrant agenda, TikTok might be banned soon, an all-new OPA'S corner, and for history, we'll be talking about my proof that Kurt Cobain was murdered and some brand new evidence, memes, and much more, so subscribe and stay tuned. Now, as always, I'd like to introduce my great and insightful co-host and creator of this amazing game, Jake Grant. Welcome, Jake.
Hey, Jeremiah. Great to be here once again. I'm so stoked, man. 33% funded on Tribe. And please, guys, if you are interested in getting your hands on one of the limited edition copies, go ahead and jump over there. Once they're gone, that's the end of that opportunity. But man, Jeremiah and I have some really cool giveaway ideas for people who donate to the Kickstarter for Tribe, the Total Eclipse game. And maybe we can tell people a little bit about the t-shirts we have available for anybody who donates at least $10. And also, I think there's a possible watch giveaway for anybody who donates the most to the project.
I do have it right here. I don't know if we could zoom in, but it's that's the right way. An FE watch. It's very, very cool. Sent to me by a Etsy company called Flat Earth Products. So check them out if you want to get one. But I say support Jake, and then you can do, two things at once. You can get a cool watch, and you can help support this awesome game and this awesome cause, and you need to join the movement. Let's get it done, man. We're going to get you over that mark.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
And then after the show every Fridays, we're going to start going on Discord. So if you guys are interested in that, the link will be below Jake's link for the Kickstarter. So you got some good current news for me, Jake?
Yes, we do. Let's get into it.
All right, let's dive in.
All right, everybody. Just a quick reminder. Don't forget, become ungovernable. And what does that mean? It means you're self-sufficient to the point where you don't need a government. You're just, doing your own thing. It's for a lawless society that government is actually necessary. But when you follow the laws of the Most High, you don't necessarily need that overreach in your life, so to speak. Just like this overreach, right? Nancy Pelosi, we have to pass the bill so you can find out what's in it. And this is a quote from James Madison. It will be of little avail to the people if the laws be so voluminous that they cannot be read, or so incoherent that they cannot be understood. Well, that's what we're seeing in today's world, is they're pushing so many laws through in these bills and passing all these things that people aren't able to catch the agendas that are being shoved down our throats. And that's why become ungovernable, right? Anyways, never worry about who will be offended if you speak the truth. Worry about who will be misled and deceived and destroyed if you don't. I mean, it's a loving thing to speak truth into somebody's life, even if it offends their ears. Speaking truth in a timely manner can sometimes save somebody's life, can shake them out of the slumber that they're in. And so that's why it's so important for us to be lovers of the truth. And that's why we do this show and share clips and go into all these different topics, because we want to know the truth.
Absolutely.
A friend who becomes an enemy after a little misunderstanding has been an enemy all along. They were just pretending. And so this is a good reminder to be patient. We have to be better communicators all around. And I think people need to recognize that the politically correct culture that has been pushed on us has created people that are so easily offended that they'll turn against you on a heartbeat if you just believe different than them. Yeah. But for a society to grow strong, there has to be a value in the diversity of opinions. And I would argue that that diversity of opinions ends with the single pursuit and love of the truth. And as long as you have that, you can have a different path of your journey on truth, and we can share those tidbits back and forth so that we can both grow mutually. But don't be so quickly offended, because if after just a little misunderstanding you turn against somebody, what a sad day that is.
Yep.
So we have some interesting things happening in the heavens within just a month, guys. April 8th is the big eclipse. In terms of celestial events, to me, it's well worth going, finding time with your family to go and watch it, get some of those eclipse glasses. It's not so often that this happens in North America. And in fact, this is the last total solar eclipse in North America for some time, to my understanding. But there's some really interesting things that are going to happen during the total solar eclipse on April 8th. So check out this video of how, when you look up at that moment of totality, you just might see a horned devil comet. Check this out.
Okay.
On April 8th of 2024, during the occurrence of a rare total solar eclipse, stargazers may be treated to the sight of the Devil Comet, also officially known as 12P Bons Brooks. This comet, named after the astronomers Jean-Louis Pons and William Robert Brooks, who first observed it in 1812 and 1883 respectively, has earned its demonic moniker due to the horn-shaped gas and dust trail it leaves behind. While not malevolent or harmful to Earth, the comet's distinctive appearance has led to its nickname. Comets like 12P, which orbit the sun and consist of dust and ice, display long tails formed as they heat up during their approach to the sun. This process releases gases and dust, creating a glowing trail that can span millions of miles, as reported by USA Today. The core of every comet is a frozen nucleus of dust and ice, which, as the comet nears the sun, transforms into gas, forming a dusty cloud around the nucleus called the coma. The unique shape of 12P Pons Brooks coma, resembling the horns, contributes to its striking visual resemblance to devil horns.
Wow, very, very interesting. If you guys haven't heard of it yet, go check out this website. It's eclipsewitness.com, and it shows some interesting tidbits about the supernatural authorship of the solar eclipse phenomenon. Of course, if you've heard a little bit about it, you might have caught on that these eclipses are passing over the United States in such a pattern that is reminiscent of the Paleo-Hebrew Aleph Tav. And there's some interesting bits of information, such as how the 2017 August 21st eclipse crossed over multiple cities named Salem. Now this eclipse coming in April 8th is passing over several Nineveh supposed cities, kind of strewn across this path of effect. And then, of course, you guys had that one just recently happened a few months ago, on October 14th, 2023, that passed over San Antonio. So it creates this really interesting pattern. And so the signs in the heavens, of course, as we learn in the very beginning of the Bible, right? The book of Genesis says that the sun, moon, and stars are for signs, seasons, and appointed moedim. And so whenever we see total solar eclipses and things like this, and things line up in a really symbolic way for a lot of people, I would say that, signs are signs for a reason, right? And we don't know what they mean. I don't know if anything's going to happen on the day of the eclipse, but they tend to herald world events, whether through social engineering because of the effect on our collective subconscious, or if there's divine, mechanisms that start to kick into play after these signs warn us that, dark days are ahead or whatever. And so in history, we've seen world wars following eclipses. We've seen plagues, worldwide plagues following eclipses. And we have a lot of things happening on the national headline, so to speak. And so when we see signs like this during the year of the election, I don't think it's by chance. I think the Almighty has put these signs in a cyclical pattern, and while we can calculate when they're going to happen, I think the signs do herald things that happen in the world. Now, one of the interesting parallels with the story of Jonah and the city of Nineveh is that apparently, according to historians, a well-documented solar eclipse happened over the city of Nineveh before Jonah showed up and told the people to repent. And so is this a call to repentance? I think that should be probably something that we are heeding all the time, but sometimes people need to be kind of shaken by some of these coinkydinks, so to speak. So anyways, that's all about the eclipse coming up. Now, let's go ahead and check this next video out. Not only is this year a year with signs in the heavens, coming United States elections, deceptions, World War rumors, and whatnot, there's also some interesting prophetic events happening in Israel, and there's a possibility that the third temple and the sacrifice of the red heifer is going to happen this year. So we're going to keep an eye out on this. Check out this next video.
You guys want to hear something crazy?
Please. Sure. Please.
I'm going to say this. Everyone go listen to the most recent, I don't know when this comes out. Go listen
March
to the
2nd.
episode of Blurry Creatures where they talk about the red heifer.
Okay. What is the red heifer?
Yo, this is wild. This is wild.
It sounds like an insult.
They brought, yeah, it does, right?
Yeah, red heifer.
No, but it's it's written within prophecy that, for the temple to be rebuilt, the third temple to be rebuilt, that ushers in basically the end times or whatever. Mm-hmm. But before that is supposed to happen, within the Jewish faith, all the tools and stuff that they use within the temple need to be cleansed before the temple is built or before they can go into the temple.
So what do they do is cleanse it.
In order to do that, they sacrifice a red heifer.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Okay. So since the time of Moses, there's only been 9 red heifers ever sacrificed. And these red heifers, they have to be perfect.
Heifers are cows that haven't given birth, right?
Yes, it's like,
Okay.
it's,
I thought it was a... Oh, ignore me.
but they have to be flawless in every way. There can't be a single white hair on them. And it's like all these criterias, right? These two dudes that were on Blurry were talking about basically the end times and whatnot. They're both from Texas, and the last red heifer to have been sacrificed was 2,000 years ago for the temple.
Okay.
And that was for the second temple, right? So they've been searching, the Jews have been searching for another red heifer for 2,000 years, a perfect red heifer. Mm-hmm. This guy had some connection with a cattle rancher in Texas and got invited by this one dude with these rabbis to go look for red heifer, this farm that like grows or breeds red heifers. And so they went and they found 5
Perfect.
that matched the description. And he said the process was insane. So like they were like examining it, and then like they left, and then they came back, and then they're Skyping with these other higher ranked rabbis in Israel, and they're going over each detail, like measuring the hooves, like looking at every single detail. Yeah. And then like making like markings on them. And so the criteria is the red heifer, like yoke they can never have been yoked. No one could have leaned on them. What? Like all like crazy criteria stuff. That's why it's been 2,000 years.
I see. I've never been a fan of lean ground beef. Anyway, continue.
But they determined, yes, we finally found them after 2,000 years.
So so as soon as they get done sacrificing one 2,000 years ago, they have a team that searches again. So continues to search until so that's when
for the ceremonial. So after the temple was destroyed, the second temple, it was like 70 AD or something that the temple was destroyed.
Well, I don't know.
And what are you doing over there?
Bro, I'll come back to this. I'm still doing research on the previous story, and I'm finding stuff out.
Okay.
It's too good.
Last temple destroyed.
I think it was like 70 AD or something, in the 70s. AD.
Not the 1970s.
No.
You can tell by the way. And just EG's in the temple.
I don't. I'm
70
just.
CE.
That's AD.
Oh,
Durr.
okay.
But yeah, so they, and you got to go listen to the podcast because they explain it really well. But basically, he's saying that they have from right now, these 5 heifers are in Israel right now, being like protected and guarded. 2 of them, the older they've gotten, are now not qualified, but there's 3 left that are still qualified. But they have 9 months to sacrifice this red heifer in order to, because they can't be like older than 3 years old or something in order to for the ritual or whatever.
Yeah.
That's sad.
But he's basically saying like 9 months, if this happens, you know, we're now in the trajectory of
The
this end times prophecy stuff.
I guess I'm still confused on like what spurs they have to do the sacrifice. Like at what time? Is it just as soon as they find one, or is it like at a proper
Again,
time?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what's crazy too is what he said that with each sacrifice of these red heifers, they always mix the ashes of the previous red heifers that have been there. When they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, they also found in there basically a canister, a jar that had the previous 9 red heifers'
Oh my
ashes
gosh.
in it,
Weird.
dating
Yeah.
back to Moses.
What an artifact.
Is there like was there like I guess lettering or writing in with that?
There's like a copper tablet or something that
Dude.
like had like this is what
That's
this is.
what?
Yeah.
I've never heard about this.
Yeah.
Golly, dude.
So in 9 months or so, if you guys see, it's supposed to happen on the Mount of Olives
Dude,
too.
can we get tickets?
Dude,
They're ticketing the event.
but I thought it was crazy, man.
Yeah,
And he's
that
just
is
like, if it
wild.
happens, you know, it's like,
Yeah,
We're
dude.
going.
Dude, we got to go to that Texas ranch.
I know.
Let's get us a red heifer,
And know it's
baby.
the crazy story too. He said these guys that own this ranch, they were going to get into cattle farming and stuff, and they read a long time ago about the red heifer and stuff. And he said before he started the ranch, he's like, "How cool would it be if we started just breeding red heifers, and one of them became this
No
red heifer?"
way.
No. So they knew about it. They're like, it
They
was, yeah.
knew about it, but
Wow.
like, it's been there for like 20 something years. This
Yeah.
ranch, and then finally,
Jeez.
yeah,
It's
Just a
called-
bunch of Jewish guys show up like, hey, we're ready to buy.
yeah,
Come on.
What if it had been 7 perfect red heifers?
that'd be crazy.
I know, but 8 is really the number of completion.
No, it's 7.
What are you talking about?
We always talk about this. You always
do you
say
say
8. It's 7.
What do you mean 8? Because it's an infinity sign or what?
I just remember hearing one time that 8 was the number of completion to God.
No, it's 7.
I don't know a lot about the number symbolism
All right,
in the
guys.
Bible, but
Anyway,
All right, so very interesting. One of the significant reasons that's something to pay attention to is there have been some articles coming out showing that the attacks on Israel from Hamas actually may have had some motivation related to their desire to start making sacrifices on the Temple Mount. And so what's very interesting there, of course, is if the whole world explodes into a massive world war and, you have all these things, it does make you think that we might be in the prophetic times as mentioned in the scriptures. And so it's a very rare thing for them to get these cattle, and they have to be a certain age. That's why we're on a ticking time clock, because I believe it's once they're over 3 years, they aren't qualified to be sacrificed anymore. So within the next year or two, we're going to see something, and there's a lot of talk that it will be this year. So check it out. This next video I found very interesting, and I think it's very important to understand the duality of the English language, especially when you think about how it's used to subvert the minds of the masses. Check out this next clip.
When I look up the meaning of words, I use an etymology dictionary, not a standard dictionary. The etymology is the word's origin. In my opinion, from where words are spells, and a spell cannot be reversed unless you do an exorcism, the original meaning of a word sticks. I could be wrong on that, but that's just intuitively what I feel. So, the word bully means sweetheart, lover, or brother. in an etymology dictionary. In a standard dictionary today, it says someone that causes intentional harm. But if it actually means brother, sweetheart, or lover, if we go around and say, don't bully, stop bullying, what we're actually saying is stop being a brother, stop being a lover, stop being a sweetheart. It's the inversion of what we think that we're saying. Same thing with the word nice. It means foolish, silly, or stupid. So if we say have a nice day, we're saying have a stupid day. It's not coincidence. Or maybe it is, but coincidence is pre-planning. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Wow.
I like that she ended with that.
I was turned on to this concept watching a video way back. It's titled English, the Secret Language of Witches. And it's the concept that the English language has such a duality in the etymology. It's really interesting, but even just the words itself, like I think one off the top of my head is when we go to work, we earn a living. And what is an urn? It's a thing you put the ashes of a dead body in, right? I mean, you can see that when we speak, sometimes it's contextual, but we also, in a lot of ways, can self-curse. When it comes to learning to read and write, well, what is a ritual in witchcraft? It's a rite. And what do they learn to read with, right? Well, a reed is a stick, like a wand. And they learn to read and write cursive. They're writing cursive, right? Mm-hmm. You know, if you can see kind of the way that our language is, then you can understand the legalese that gets so many agendas pulled over us. The Black's Law Dictionary comes to mind, how legally things are redefined. And if you're not aware of what you mean when you say things, you can be lost in this modern babble, right? And so it's very interesting. And the reason it's significant, I showed that video, is because this next clip, which is a breakdown of how the illegal immigrant crisis is a gateway for voter fraud. And you'll hear in this video how they purposely redefine language and attack people who are speaking common sense, calling them racists and such. Yep. And they use language to squelch the argument against their agenda. Check this clip out.
The Democrat open borders plan to entrench single-party rule, explained in under 2 minutes. 1. Flood the country with untold millions of illegals by land, sea, and air from all over the world, enough to eclipse the populations of 36 individual U.S. states so far. 2. Prioritize the needs of these millions of non-citizens over the needs of the American citizen, with free flights, buses, hotels, meals, and phones, ensuring their loyalty to the political party that imported them. 3. Keep them in the country at all costs, even when they commit violent crime like murder and rape. Attack the language used to describe the criminals, as opposed to the criminals themselves. Slander critics as racist. 4. Ensure their privileges are made irrevocable with city and state sanctuary laws that act as population magnets. Codify permanent status and ensure non-cooperation with ICE. 5. Count the non-citizens in the census that will determine congressional apportionment in the House of Representatives. As of now, that would equal 13 extra congressional districts, a tremendous amount of electoral power. 6. Wage a massive, heavily funded lawfare campaign to change state voting laws that legalize mass mail-in ballots, no signature verification, and no proof of citizenship requirements, making it nearly impossible to prove voter fraud. 7. Lock in the permanent voting majority with campaign promises of lavish benefits and permanent privileges, enshrining generational fealty to the Democrat Party. 8. Win elections. 9. Entrenched single-party rule has been achieved. The best part? Your tax dollars are paying for it.
Wow, what a concise breakdown. What do you think of that, Jeremiah?
I think it's amazing. It's like when we interviewed Brother Theo when we were talking about music, and I said mumble rap is kind of like word spells. Remember that? And it like blew his mind. And that was like one of the one times I blew his mind. I was like, oh man, he likes this. But it was just something that I had heard from one of our current news that you presented. I was like, Well, I wouldn't have been able to do that without Jake after the fact, but
But
yeah, that's
you
what they're
guys should
doing,
definitely
man.
check out that Theo interview. Jeremiah. That talk with Theo was so interesting, breaking down, music and the authority of music in association with the prophetic nature of somebody. Like when people have the gift of music, they're generally a leader, and whatever music they use draws the crowd that they are then to lead with their ideology, their lifestyle, and whatnot. And it was just so profound. So you guys check that interview out. It was really good.
And we'll be going on his show soon, so go subscribe to his channel.
Here's another really interesting clip. It's the Canal Wars and some more explanation as to what's happening over in the Middle East. Check this out.
With the exception of the Ever-Given container ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal in 2021, what's happening in the Red Sea right now is having the single largest impact on global shipping ever. For context, the Houthis' attacks on ships in the Red Sea have forced hundreds of boats to avoid the Suez Canal and sail an extra 4,000 miles around Africa, burning fuel, inflating costs, and adding tens of days of travel or more in each direction. The reason that this is such a big deal, unlike the Ever-Given, which got cleared up in just 6 days, is what's happening right now in the Red Sea could last up to a year. And the result? Shipping companies have already tripled the prices that they charge to take a container from Asia to Europe. And if this crisis continues for as long as people predict, these price increases could only be the start. So what does this mean for you? The first and most notable impact is being prepared to pay more for goods. JP Morgan predicts that if these shipping disruptions persist, inflation could climb by 0.7% in the first half of the year alone. All this begs the question, who is set to benefit the most from all of this? With the recent strikes by the US and UK against the Houthis in Yemen, there's been a lot of discussion online of buying shares of defense contractors like Lockheed Martin or Raytheon, as they're likely going to be beneficiaries of increased military activity. The catch here is that these companies are already trading at pretty high levels. Instead, shipping companies like Torm, ticker TRMD, Andor Shipping, ticker ASC, and Scorpio Tankers, ticker STNG, are likely to be the real beneficiaries of this crisis if shipping rates continue to rise. When you combine all of this with what they're currently trading at, along with the dividend yield, these companies are definitely worth keeping an eye on as this situation plays out.
Wow.
I like how he explained the domino effect of world events, because when we see the example of the Evergive that lodged in the Suez Canal, you saw in the months following that the blockage of travel and the effect that had on fuel prices, on product prices. And just like he described, no wonder things are becoming more expensive. They're charging triple to get a shipping container all the way around Africa versus through that shortcut through the Strait of Hormuz there. And these are very important things. And there's something else very important to be aware of is coming in the next couple months, is a law to possibly ban TikTok. And the significance of this, of course, is that not only is there the fear from government officials that TikTok's being used as a Chinese spying software, which it likely could be, but also the infringement on the freedom of speech, that TikTok has allowed information to be exchanged porously that contradict the mainstream, such as anti-V information, stuff that talks about the WHO and the World Economic Forum and all the different organizations that seem to hate being talked about and exposed. TikTok seems to be one of those places that people are able to share that alternative perspective and get millions and millions of views, and they don't like it. And so check out this next clip.
In my last video, I showed that the Zionists are trying to buy TikTok, but has anyone looked at who brought the bill in the first place and who pays him? Because I just did. Here, check this out. This is the bill right here. Representative Mike Gallagher. That would be this charming devil right here. And if we look at his top contributors for this election cycle, Palantir and Google are at the top with $44,000 and $40,000. But right there, that's APAC with $17,000. But wait, there's more. We're gonna switch this to the last election cycle in 2022 and scroll down. And would you look at that? His top contributor that got him elected in 2022 was APAC with $44,000 contribution. If you didn't know, that's the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, the Zionist lobby group that doesn't need to register as a foreign agent because they refuse to. So just to clarify, the TikTok ban bill was introduced by a guy whose some of his top contributions are coming from the Zionists and from Google and Palantir, top tech companies associated with the CIA and Mossad. And now Mnuchin's trying to buy it, and ever since he stopped being Treasury Secretary for Trump, his business model is basically just ally with as many Zionists as humanly possible. People like David Friedman, people like the ex-chief of Mossad, Yossi Cohen, getting board seats on companies like Cyber Reason, an Israeli tech cyber company, which it's worth noting also has a Google person on their board, as well as Lockheed Martin. I mean, I'm speculating here. These are not facts, but it's looking more and more like the Israel lobby is the one that brought the bill. And now it's looking like Zionists are lining up to buy TikTok. Can't imagine why. And if you can't imagine why, here's an audio from the chief of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, that might enlighten you as to why. Are you getting the picture yet? Because I got a picture that might help you. And I just want to remind you that pro-Palestine content on TikTok is some of the most censored content there is. And despite that, this is the data from TikTok. No one on TikTok is trying to support Israel. Everyone on TikTok is trying to support Palestine. Mr. Greenblatt is right. The Zionists have a major TikTok problem. And they should probably start devoting all of their energy towards this. You feel me? But what do I know? I'm just some dude in his living room. I bet the government's telling us the truth. I bet it's all about China.
All right, so very interesting to see the divide that's happening. I've made the analogy sometimes there's a Gideon's army sifting happening across the world on a variety of topics, and every year there seems to be another one that is designed to divide and conquer. And I liked how that one guy who was freaking out on stage was putting it, that this is not about a right-left paradigm, it's about the next generation. And I would argue it's not about the next generation and whether they support Israel or Palestine. It's about the souls of the next generation, because we're all on a propaganda railroad heading towards exactly where they want us, which is the stockades to slaughter the cattle, right?
Right.
But the mindset of helping Palestine and helping people who are, affected, and they might not be Hamas, that's not necessarily bad. People who are in war-torn countries often need aid. But what about when that aid ends up killing the very people we're trying to help? Check out this very shocking clip. Food! Sorry, but that's what's happening. I mean, aid is dropping from the heavens and killing people. And I thought that was just so terrible and just crazy that was happening. But what did you think about that, Jeremiah? I mean, everybody's like freaking out. Help Palestinians that are, in a war-torn country, and then they're sending aid that's killing them anyways. It's just like the worst joke
weird.
ever.
Yeah, it is. And I kind of want to like reach out to Nir Shoshani from Air News and see what if he has any video or has seen anything. And that is pretty funny in a not funny way. Yeah. I agree with that.
All right, here's this next clip. Queers for Palestine.
What do you think about Queers for Palestine?
There are no such things as queers in Palestine. I think people have, I don't know where people get their information from, but there is no such thing as queers in Palestine. Being gay, openly gay, is illegal. You will be stoned, you'll be thrown off a building, you'll be lashed to death. Like, it's not acceptable, period. It goes also against Islam. Like, there is no such thing as queers for Palestine. There are no queers within Palestine. You cannot be openly gay in any Muslim country in the Middle East, period.
So what's your message for queer people in the West saying these things?
Check your facts.
That's funny.
Check your facts.
Facts don't care about your feelings, right?
No, it's just the latest I support this flag on my Facebook page thing.
Yep.
What was our first episode? I support the latest thing.
I support the next, or
man.
whatever the current thing is. Yeah,
Whatever the current thing.
It's still accurate today. I mean, it's still going on.
Exactly. There's been some interesting interviews going on in alt media right now. Cat Williams, we did a little special breaking down his expose of the Illuminati that he did on a recent talk show. He was then invited on the Joe Rogan podcast and said some pretty interesting things that left Joe Rogan speechless. Check this out.
Joe Rogan's left speechless.
The earliest I had seen that word transgender was Baphomet, the transgender. I knew that in the ritual of Baphomet, the transgender, to show allegiance to him, you had to kiss his ass ring, and that somehow calling people to goat would be normalized over the sheep being always the most popular reference.
We got some good weed, Cat.
This must be the weed.
I'm trying to figure out how to jump in on that.
So it's interesting how we have this growth of truthers speaking about the agendas. You can leave a guy like Joe Rogan who talks with so many people speechless. You're definitely dropping something. I don't know. Yeah. Here's a interesting clip from Tucker Carlson talking about the meaning of life, especially for men. Check this out.
What advice would you give to young people? Have children immediately. Oh, that? Including in high school. Yes, I think that's all that matters. Oh, I can't afford that. Well, yeah, you'll figure out a way to afford it once you have kids. This is true of men. I'm not sure if it's true of women, but it's definitely true of men. You will not achieve until you have no choice. Men do nothing until they have to. But once they have to, they will do anything. Men will do nothing unless they have to, but once they have to, they will do anything. I really believe that from watching and from being one. And even if you're poor, having spent my life among rich people, I grew up among rich people. I am a rich person. Boy, are they unhappy. Well, that's clearly not the road to happiness. You don't want to be a debt slave or starve to death or anything like that, but like making $1 billion, that's not worth doing. Don't do that. Don't even try to do that. Seeking money for its own sake is a dead end. What you should seek for its own sake is children. Talk about a creative act. The whole point of life is to create. That's all that's worth doing while you're alive, is creating something beautiful. By the way, it's super fun. It's not hard. I can get more technical off the air if you want. I have a lot of thoughts on it.
Do you have documents or something?
No! I can draw you a schematic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's the greatest thing.
God, I love Tucker.
Tucker talking about the next generation, just like I referenced in that previous video, how it's really not a right-left paradigm. It's a next generation paradigm.
Yep.
And, people are like, well, what are we going to do about all these terrible sod agendas, right? Well, you just outbreed them. The same sex is not going to have a descendant to vote against you in the coming decades, right? So, it's just the concept of growing bigger and better outside of Babylon is something that we have to get ingrained in our heads, because even though these agendas are being pushed all over, everybody's talking about, this or that. Well, what do we do as practical, truth-loving people? We just build outside and build better. We thrive in a collapsing environment is the goal, right? And, the next generation is so important. And I had to share that clip of Tucker, of course, because I just had my third daughter, just recently. And I'm like, yeah, kids. Yeah.
So how do you pronounce her name? That's what I want to know. Everybody wanted to know in the Discord.
It's Elishiva.
Elishiva. I love it, man.
Yeah. And of course, unless you're my wife, then it's Elisheva. So, we try to give a meaningful name to our daughters, and it's just I'm so blessed to had another gift given to me like that in this life. So
I love that they're all unique.
Shiva,
You know what I mean? Unique. They're all unique. Nobody likes a lot of people have the same name. Like, I'm sure there are thousands of Jeremiahs out there, thousands of Jakes, but you're naming your kid something that nobody will ever have in school, So I thought that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we were trying to give them something unique. But anyways, here's another clip, which is the topic of a bill in Tennessee that is allowing V's to be put in our veggies. Check this out.
You guys hear about that bill that's being passed in Tennessee right now regarding lettuce? It's really terrifying.
Okay.
At the University of California, they have figured out a way to put human within vegetables.
Why? Dude.
And so the whole bill is basically trying to label different vegetables, which ones have and which ones don't, so that people are allowed to choose. Because apparently they're trying to roll it out without telling anyone the difference of this one has a vaccine and this one does not have a vaccine.
What are we doing? Why is this even a conversation?
I don't know.
Why
Stop
do we
putting vaccines in vegetables, please.
Quit touching the food. The food's fine.
That's why I don't eat vegetables. Yeah.
I'm just saying, if they could do it sneakily, they'll do it sneakily.
Yeah, they probably have already been doing it.
Bro.
And now they're just kind of like, wait a second. We just figured out how to do this.
Yeah.
Like, you got to let us know which ones you're putting in. They're like,
lettuce.
Yeah, make a
lettuce.
Let us know.
I don't know what that means, but it scares me.
Oh, man. I mean, figure out how they convinced everyone to stand in line to voluntarily poison themselves multiple times, and you'll figure out how mind control works. Dun, dun, dun. Well, let's hear it from the mouth of Joe Biden himself, how disappointed he is for everybody who resisted and did not comply. Check this out.
My message to unvaccinated Americans is this. What more is there to wait for? What more do you need to see?
Evidence.
Free, safe, and convenient.
Whatever.
FDA approval. Over 200 million Americans have gotten at least one shot.
Tragically.
We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin.
What are you going to do?
And your refusal has cost all of us.
You're going to lose our heads.
Please do the right thing.
No, your people
But just
killed
don't
my
take it
dad,
from
Joe
me.
Biden. Your people.
Listen to the voices of Americans who are lying in hospital beds.
You put
taking
them
their
there.
final breath saying, if only I'd gotten.
No.
If only. It's a tragedy. Please don't let it become yours.
That man is a tragedy.
Man, when you see videos like that and how it was being circulated around the time that the most coercion was being implemented, it's almost diabolical. And then now that we look back and there's actually vindication for the people who experimented, with this new mRNA technology, right? And then now are reaping the consequences of their decisions. And now not only that, but those who resisted and stood up against the mandates are being vindicated legally, returning to their jobs and being almost rewarded for standing up for their rights, while those who caved for the Dunkin' Donuts, unfortunately suffered the consequences of experimenting in something that is so untested and has dire effect on their health.
Yep.
And the same guy who was emphatically encouraging us to participate in the biggest pharmaceutical ploy in recorded history is the same guy who was recorded in this video trying his best to not sniff a small baby. Check this out.
Oh my gosh. Sniff.
On the prowl here. Mr. President, don't sniff the baby. Don't do it. Mr. President, they can all see you.
I would like to see the baby.
Hannibal Lecter vibes right there. Would you let Joe Biden sniff it? What if he sniffed your baby? Would you punch him?
Can you punch a sitting president without going to jail for the rest of your life? I'm not sure.
I mean,
I would do everything in my power to make sure my baby was nowhere near a sniffing zone. Let's just put it that way.
Well, when Charlie gets the Presidential Medal of Freedom someday, hopefully it's not in the Biden administration. It might be soon. Who knows? But if he tries to sniff my cat, I'm going to punch him. With respect. Hope that doesn't get us demonetized.
Well,
Trump.
Here's another funny Biden clip. Check out all of these Trump train Ford truckers that surround his tour bus. It's really funny. Check this out.
God bless Texas. That was actually when they were running, and if they come back, that's the same thing that would happen every single time. They went right to the airport.
Tour
Did you know
bus
that?
surrounded.
They dropped them right back off the airport.
Wow.
That's what we do here in Texas.
Well, here's another little clip of Ann Coulter, real time with Bill Mayer, saying how the news is so skewed for the racist ideological agenda that they're trying to use to control us. Check this out.
Watch it while you can. This is being scrubbed from the internet.
The Super Bowl shooting.
We have some idea.
What?
If it were a white man shooting, we'd know.
Well, we don't know. But they haven't.
That's how we know it's not a white man. I can tell you that much.
But you think they're repressing that reporting?
They wouldn't tell us about the transgender woman that shot up the Christian school for what, like a year? San Bernardino out here. Remember the crazy terrorist Muslims? That's when I first noticed, they're not telling us who it is. It's not a white male. The longer they go without telling you, it's not a white male.
Okay.
Wow. So, just pushing their agendas, it shows how language is such a powerful tool in molding the minds of America.
Yeah. Have you seen that new trailer about magic? And I don't want to say the word, the magical N-words. It's a real movie. And have you seen it? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think I saw that trailer. Yeah,
That's
can't
a real
believe
trailer.
something like that. Yeah. Wow.
If we made a reverse of that, oh my gosh, we would be blacklisted for life, everywhere.
It's the same premise of how critical race theory was being taught in schools, and it's supposedly something to fight and combat racism, but inherently it in itself is racist. How do you lift up minority racial groups? By segregating the majority group, right? And segregation, let's go back to the 1960s, right? That's what that ideology advocates. And to see movies like the one that you brought up is interesting because it brings more of a divide between people. And it's not that I'm necessarily against a divide between cultural groups. I mean, people naturally tend to congregate with people that have like interests and like community patterns and like faith, but that doesn't have to be a color issue. That has to be a culture separation issue. But anyways, This final video, I think, is very interesting in terms of the advance of computer technology. It's how AI is now going to make it possible to program computers with just the English language. Check this final clip out. It's a video of Batman going no, of people who spent the last 10 years learning multiple programming languages to code, and now it's like, oh yeah, by the way, AI's made it so you can literally talk to your computer and tell it what you want it to do, right?
Yeah.
So you know, it's cool to live in an age of technology that's advancing that quickly. But with that shared, Jeremiah, I hope you guys saw some value in some of the clips I shared today. That'll be all the news for this week.
All right, thanks, Jake, for another great current news as always. And now I want to share with you guys the Testing the Globe Super PAC, so check this out. We're flat earthers, and we know NASA faked the moon landing.
We're flat earthers. We know the secrets hidden in Antarctica.
We're flat earthers, and we know NASA was started by Nazis.
We're flat earthers. We know that water doesn't bend and stick to a spinning ball.
We're flat earthers. Our beliefs are backed up by the Bible.
We're flat earthers. We know that pilots don't adjust their flight downward to account for the curvature of a globe.
We're flat earthers. We know about the firmament and why the rockets can go through it.
We're flat earthers. We don't trust the government. We do our own research.
We're flat earthers, and we can prove it.
Get your Testing the Globe Super PAC today. The link will be attached to this video, where you will get a Testing the Globe book, a Testing the Globe interactive DVD-ROM, and a refraction kit by Rob Skiba.
Oh, I was too late. I think it's about that time for an all-new OPA'S Corner. Take it away, Opa. Charlie.
Mein Hut, der hat 3 Ecken. 3 Ecken hat mein Hut. Und hat nicht 3 Ecken, dann ist es nicht mein Hut.
Well, it's time for another OPA'S Corner. So, let's get started. A man was sitting on the edge of the bed, watching his wife, who was looking at herself in the mirror. Since her birthday was not far off, he asked what she'd like as a gift. "I'd like to be 8 again." On the morning of her birthday, he rose early, made her a nice big bowl of Cocoa Pops, and then took her to Adventure World theme park. What a day! He put her on every ride in the park. The Death Slide, the Wall of Fear, the Screaming Roller Coaster, everything there was. 5 hours later, they staggered out of the theme park. Her head was reeling and her stomach felt upside down. He then took her to a McDonald's where he ordered her a Happy Meal with extra fries and a chocolate shake. Then it was off to the movie with popcorn, a soda pop, and her favorite candy, M&Ms. What a fabulous adventure. Finally, she wobbled home with her husband and collapsed into the bed, exhausted. He leaned over his wife with a big smile and lovingly asked, "Well, dear, was it like being 8 again?" Her eyes slowly opened, and her expression suddenly changed. "I meant my dress size, you idiot." One day, a diver was enjoying the aquatic world 20 feet below sea level. He noticed a guy at the same depth, but with no scuba gear whatsoever. The diver went down another 5 feet, and the guy joined him a few minutes later. The diver went below 25 feet, and minutes later, the same guy joined him. This confused the diver, so he took out a waterproof chalkboard and wrote, "How the heck are you able to stay under this depth without equipment?" The guy took the board and chalk, erased what the driver had written, and wrote, I'm drowning, you idiot. Tim goes away on a 2-month business trip and asks his neighbor Ron to take care of his cat Fluffy. Ron agrees. A week into the trip, Tim calls to ask Ron for an update. How's Fluffy doing? She's dead. Well, wow. That was a heck of a way to tell me. You might have broken the news a little softer and easier without being so blunt and abrupt. How? Well, the first time I called you, you could have said, Fluffy's up on the roof and we can't get her down. Then the second time I called you, you could have said, we got her down, but she's hurt herself and she's now at the vet being checked out. The third time I called you, you could have said, she was doing better, but she's taken a turn for the worst. Then the fourth time I called you, you could have said, she held on as long as she could, but last night she passed peacefully in her sleep. Wow, good advice. I'll do that the next time this situation arises. Well, good. Thanks. By the way, how's Mom doing? Well, she's up on the roof and we can't get her down. Did you hear they arrested the devil? Yeah, they got him on possession. What did one DNA say to another DNA? Do these jeans make me look fat? My IQ test results came back. They were negative. Why can't you trust an atom? Because they make up literally everything. Why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7 ate 9. What do you call a hippie's wife? Mrs. Hippie. Did you hear the one about the shepherd who drove his sheep through town? He was given a ticket for making a U-turn. What happens to an illegally parked frog? It gets towed away. What do you call a blonde with half a brain? Gifted. Why are so many blonde jokes one-liners? So brunettes can remember them. Among the things that are so simple even a child can operate them are parents. Our child has a great deal of willpower, and even more won't power. Why aren't dogs good dancers? Because they have 2 left feet. Why did Beethoven get rid of his chickens? All they said was, buck, buck, buck. My mother was so surprised when I told her I was born again. She said she didn't even feel a thing. What do you call a mobster who's buried in cement? A hardened criminal. What do you need in order to make a small fortune on Wall Street? A large fortune. The reason some politicians like to stand on their record is to keep their voters from examining it. Did you hear the one about the cat who ate a ball of yarn? She had mittens. How many paranoid people does it take to change a light bulb? Who wants to know? If you arrest the mime, do you have to tell him he has the right to remain silent?
Good question.
At which school did Sherlock Holmes get so smart? Elementary. And now for the funnies. You know, you didn't help our argument that you're not a witch by turning the jury into buzzards. I want to clean out my storage unit, but what can I get rid of? Gesundheit. Not proficient at shooting, William Tell VI found another way to carry out the family tradition. Competition in nature. Captured cowboy anthill. Bury here. Settler problems? See us. Anthill Avengers. See us for your torturing needs. Expert anthill. We work nice and slow. Need an anthill? Call us first. Anthill. Open 24 hours. Whoa! I think I just gave birth. David Copperfield. David Copperfield's granny. Beach rules. No camping, boating, evolving. Dang. I was kicked out of the Mine Academy. It was something I said. Office of Strategic Planning. Sometimes I just can't contain myself. For those who dread wrestling their cats into a carrier, the Vacuum Vamoose offers a gentle built-in vacuum.
That's awesome.
Score! High 0. We're big on symbolism here. Suffice it to say, you're not out of the woods yet. Give it to me straight, Doc. How long have I got? Emergency, call nurse, get mop. I'd say about 20 minutes. Why, yes, thank you. I would like a knuckle sandwich.
Oh, he's an alien.
I haven't used in 15 years. I switched to lithium batteries back in '09 and haven't looked back. AA meeting. Lifeguard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cats. We had to amputate. Oh no! How many tentacles does he have left? 3.14. Octopi. Whenever I worry I'm too happy, I just turn on the news.
Yeah. Except for Skiba and his nation.
Do you think she knows we just sniff nip and have the munchies? She's definitely taunting us. Squirrel Scout cookies. The older I get, the more things I refer to as whatchamacallits. So, you admit that this is indeed your banjo the police found at the scene, but you expect this jury to believe that you were never in the kitchen with Dinah? And one final warning before we begin the exam. Any stray eyeballs will be immediately thumped. He has trouble making decisions. Now, here's one of the mysteries of the universe. Which came first? Remember Ed, righty-tighty, left-loosey. Oh, great. Another migrant caravan. Ask your doctor if playing into the hands of the pharmaceutical industry is right for you.
It's like 90% the other way.
It's a note from my mother saying I don't have to go to prison. Listen up, team. I'm sending you on Earth, but without wings, so no one suspect you're angels. What a lousy trip. It rained the whole time. Gold. Customers who bought this also bought frankincense, myrrh. E-I-E-I-O. Let out your inner child. Which one? You know you're a grown-up when your toes keep getting further away. Without freedom of speech, we would not know who the idiots are. And that concludes another OPA'S Corner.
Mein Hut, der hat 3 Ecken. 3 Ecken hat mein Hut. Und hat nicht 3 Ecken, dann ist es nicht mein Hut.
OPA'S Corner is now available on my own YouTube channel. Like, share, and subscribe.
Perfect. Thank you, Opa, for another great OPA'S Corner, and rest in peace, Shelby. I know you're barking at us right now. I can hear it. Anyways, it's time for a word from our good friend and sponsor, JJ. Are you tired of living in constant pain? Do you feel like you've tried every CBD product on the market with no relief? Look no further than JJ's Natural CBD Rub. When I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disease, this was the only product that completely took my pain away. Working with JJ has been a dream come true, and his products have completely changed my life. Don't just take my word for it. Visit JJ's website, jjcbdrub.com, and read hundreds of testimonials from people whose lives have been changed by all of JJ's amazing products. And now, as a Skiba News Nation exclusive, you can get $50 off a 3-pack special of JJ's Natural CBD Rub by texting CBD to 920-382-7720. Don't suffer in silence any longer. Take control of your pain today with JJ's Natural CBD Rub. Again, text CBD to 920-382-7720 for an exclusive discount and start feeling the relief you deserve. The links are in the description below. Alright, well, it's time for some history. So this week we're going to be talking again, but more in depth, about Kurt Cobain's very suspicious death, with some never before seen evidence, and I'm going to present this week's history, to the best of my ability at least, as like a prosecutor. So you guys would be the jury, Opa, Jake, and then you guys at home, you let me know what you think at the end of this. So let's go ahead and play this very first clip so you kind of get an understanding from Unsolved Mysteries of this is what really piqued my interest in this particular case. So check this out.
Next, when rock and roll singer Kurt Cobain committed suicide, few questioned the official ruling. But private investigator Tom Grant is convinced that the truth about Cobain's death has yet to be revealed. April 8, 1994. Music fans worldwide were horrified to learn of the tragic death of reluctant rock star Kurt Cobain. Cobain's body was found in a room above the garage of his Seattle, Washington home. He had apparently taken a large dose of heroin and killed himself with a shotgun. Even as the morning commenced, rumors began to circulate. What if Kurt Cobain did not kill himself? What if Kurt Cobain was murdered? One private investigator who's been on the case from the very beginning believes the official ruling is wrong.
I don't believe Kurt Cobain committed suicide. I believe there was someone with him in that room. I believe it was someone that he knew. They were doing heroin together. I believe at a certain point, more heroin was injected into Kurt Cobain than what he wanted injected into himself. And after that point, he was shot with a shotgun once he had become totally incapacitated.
Our detectives actually went into this investigation on the premise that this was a homicide. That's the way they conducted this investigation, so that there was a very thorough, comprehensive investigation done from the very beginning, and everything that the detectives encountered indicated to them that this was a suicide. We actually found nothing to indicate that this was anything but a suicide.
Kurt Cobain was a lead singer and creative force for Nirvana, a wildly popular grunge rock band. But Cobain also made headlines for his drug-addicted lifestyle. This photograph was taken on March 4th, 1994, as Cobain was being rushed to a hospital in Rome, Italy. He had overdosed on sedatives and alcohol and nearly died. 3 weeks later, on March 30th, family and friends persuaded Cobain to check into the Exodus Recovery Center in Marina del Rey, California. But in less than 48 hours, Cobain walked out and took a late-night flight back to Seattle. A limo driver dropped Cobain off at his home, where his daughter's male nanny saw him on the morning of April 2nd. The next day, Cobain's wife, fellow rocker Courtney Love, is said to have contacted Tom Grant, a Los Angeles-based private investigator and former LA County Sheriff's deputy. Grant claims he met with Love at a Beverly Hills hotel. He also says she did not mention that Cobain had been seen at their Seattle home the day before.
We set up a surveillance in Seattle on a couple of locations, and we were attempting to locate Kurt and try to determine what he was doing, where he was going. Courtney asked us, of course, not to contact him, not to make any contact with him, just to report back where he was and what was going on.
When the surveillance failed, Grant himself flew to Seattle. He claims he and one of Cobain's friends began searching. They checked Cobain's usual hangouts. Then about 2 a.m. on April 7th, Grant says they went to Cobain's house.
And we searched the entire interior of the house, the basement, the living room, the upstairs, the attic. We looked all through the house for Kurt. His friend, when we went in the house, made a comment that he'd never seen the house as clean before. Apparently it's never been that straightened up. We didn't locate Kurt. We didn't see any indication that he had been at the house. And about this location right here.
Some 20 hours later, Tom Grant says he and Cobain's friend searched the house again. This time, Grant claims they found a note left for Cobain by the male nanny.
The first line of the note started off, "Kurt, I can't believe you managed to be in this house without me knowing." We searched the entire interior of the residence once again for any evidence that Kurt might have been there the night before, or since we had left the location the first time, and we found no evidence that he had been there.
The next day, an electrician discovered Cobain's body in a room above the garage known as the greenhouse, the only place Grant says he and Cobain's friend did not check. According to Grant, he was never told about the room, and it was too dark to see it.
It just really seems strange to me that the one place in that entire property that we didn't search was a place that I was never told about. And of course, the medical examiner later determined that Kurt had been laying up there dead for several days. So while we were searching the main house, Kurt Cobain was lying dead up above the garage.
This is a diagram of Tom Grant's depiction of the death scene. A 20-gauge shotgun was still cradled across Kurt Cobain's body. His heroin kit was at his side, and a note apparently written by Cobain was in plain sight. The first officers to arrive at the house reported that they were on the scene of a suicide.
I contacted the police the day the body was found. I attempted on the telephone to get them to slow down a little bit. I indicated I felt something was wrong. They basically told me on the phone, hey, we know a suicide when we see a suicide.
Tom Grant strongly disagrees and believes he has found a number of notable inconsistencies. Item number 1. According to Grant, Kurt Cobain carried only one credit card. Courtney Love had reportedly canceled that card shortly after Cobain left the drug rehab in California.
Now, Courtney told me that she had stopped this credit card so that she could track Kurt's activities as he attempted to use the credit card. In actuality, stopping the credit card is what made it more difficult.
After the credit card was canceled, the bank apparently recorded only the dates, the amounts, and generic information, not where the attempts were made to use the card.
There was an attempt made on April 6th in an amount of over $1,500. There was another attempt made on April 8th, which was Friday, the day the body was found, for an amount of $43. Now, according to the medical examiner, Kurt had died sometime on April 5th, the previous Tuesday. Who was using the credit card? Now, after the body was discovered, of course, the police searched Kurt's property. 2 other cards were found in the wallet, but the actual credit card that Courtney had canceled, the same card that someone was attempting to use after we now know Kurt was already dead, was not found in Kurt's property.
Item number 2. The autopsy reportedly showed Kurt Cobain's blood contained a tranquilizer, diazepam, and heroin. According to Tom Grant and published news articles, the level was 1.52 milligrams per liter. Some medical experts say that much heroin could kill a non-addict 3 times over.
Could he, with that much heroin and diazepam in his system, could he even pick up that shotgun? Wouldn't he be incapacitated within seconds?
For most people, including addicts, 1.52 milligrams per liter of morphine is a significant level, and for most of them, the great percentage, it will be a level that will induce a state of unconsciousness quite quickly, talking about seconds, not minutes.
Cyril Wecht is a nationally known forensic pathologist.
We'll be talking about
Even though
him
he hasn't
later.
seen the autopsy report, Wecht believes the suicide ruling is correct. However, he does find the high level of heroin intriguing.
I just cannot tell you that it would have been impossible for him to have shot himself because it was found that he had a level of 1.52 milligrams per liter of morphine at the postmortem examination. It's certainly within the realm of possibility, but it does raise a question as to whether or not he shot that shotgun.
Item number 3. Police have checked the shotgun shells, and the pen used to write the suicide note for fingerprints.
This one
There were no
blows my
legible
mind.
prints on any of them.
Well, I think it's clear that anyone who is familiar with firearms and their use would know that as they hold a weapon, that frequently that weapon will move in their hand. Additionally, when that weapon is discharged, that causes a jerking motion, which causes the hands to move over the surface of the weapon. And all of those factors could cause any fingerprints that may have been left on the weapon to be unusable.
So you mean to tell me he never touched that gun that he bought? Are you guys with me, or am I stupid? Sorry for the interruption.
Item number 4. The alleged suicide note. Tom Grant believes it was actually a retirement letter to Cobain's fans. There were rumors that Cobain was feeling burned out and was planning to adopt a lower profile. He had recently pulled out of the annual Lollapalooza tour, a decision which some speculate could have cost Cobain and others involved millions of dollars. This is a copy of the note that has been widely circulated. Tom Grant suggests that only the last 4 lines indicate suicide. They read, "Please keep going, Courtney. For Frances, for her life which will be so much happier without me. I love you. I love you." Curiously, these lines are written in much larger characters than the rest of the note. Unsolved Mysteries asked handwriting expert Marcel Matley to compare a copy of Cobain's alleged suicide note with copies of 2 pages of lyrics handwritten by Cobain. Matley believes the bulk of the note was written by Cobain, but finds the last 4 lines questionable.
As to the last 4 lines, there are more than a dozen differences that should give us pause, and we would have to reasonably explain these differences before we can conclude that the same person wrote the 4 lines that wrote the body of it.
Handwriting expert Reginald Alton of Oxford University also compared copies of Cobain's handwriting to a copy of the note. In a 5-page written report, Alton pointed out more than a dozen discrepancies. Alton believes the bulk of the suicide note was written by Cobain, but raises questions about the first line and the last 4 lines. His report concludes, quote, "There are many indications that there may have been a second hand at work."
Kurt Cobain had made an important decision in his life. He wanted out of the entertainment business. He didn't want to tour anymore. He didn't want to perform anymore. He wanted to be left alone. He never liked that aspect of being a performer. This decision that he had made was going to affect a lot of other people. He was no longer the money machine that he once was. Now Cobain was worth more dead than he was alive.
But who would have wanted Kurt Cobain dead? Could it have been a mysterious user of his credit card? Did that same person add critical lines to Cobain's alleged suicide note? For now, those questions remain unanswered. Despite the controversy, the Seattle police are confident they made the correct ruling. They consider the case closed. Tom Grant does not. He believes the investigation should be reopened and the inconsistencies resolved once and for all.
So that was Exhibit A, and to show you how much I love Unsolved Mysteries, is why I wanted to use it, is I love Unsolved Mysteries. This is a signed photo of the host guy. I'm a super nerd. I love that show so much. But that's what piqued my interest, because Kurt always had a special place in my heart, because he died 22 days before I was born. Same year, 22 days. And then I remember growing up hearing his music all the time, because you know how after artists die they play their music all the time, but it just always made me feel weird. And then when I watched that when I was a little bit older, I was like, okay, this is strange to me. Like the whole story just is kind of weird, not having fingerprints on a gun, whatever. But that's what that clip I'll call Exhibit A. But for Exhibit B, we're going to be going more in depth on I'm trying to be YouTube friendly, because the videos can say the word but I can't. So unaliving oneself. Does that make sense, Jake? Unaliving?
Yes.
I'll just do that. Also, we'll hear a recorded conversation with the private investigator that Courtney Love hired. He saw so much evidence that he flipped on her and her lawyer. So with that being said, let's play Exhibit B.
How do you feel about the note? I don't think you know. I feel exactly the same way. I didn't write it. Yeah. I feel the same way I felt when I read it. Didn't write it. That doesn't mean, that could mean any one of a number of things. Right. But in my mind, I don't think he wrote that note. See, usually it's not the top part of it. Yeah, I feel the same way, although I won't be surprised if we find out that he did write it. But that still doesn't necessarily mean it's a suicide note to me. Right. Maybe tonight if you could go over again? Yeah, that's fine. There's stuff I want to show you. Yeah, okay. I don't know, I just, there's some stuff that was, just left in my house that I never thought to really look at. Yeah. Look at it all, quite honestly, until last night. And I guess Are they Kurt's writings? No, hers. Oh, okay.
On Wednesday, Los Angeles police announced that Kurt Cobain's widow, Courtney Love, had been arrested last week on drug charges the day before Cobain's body was found in Seattle. On April 7th, paramedics were notified of an apparent overdose at LA's Peninsula Hotel, and when they arrived at Love's room, they found drug paraphernalia and notified police.
And what about the note? Kurt Cobain's final gasp of poetry, written in a dense hand. The first part of the note may be addressed to his fans. The worst crime I could think of would be to rip people off by faking it. Then the last 5 lines, now addressed to Cobain's wife and daughter. The writing veers and magnifies. Keep going, Courtney, for Francis. And ends, I love you, with poignant finality.
When I picked up that note and read it, it sounded phony to me.
Didn't it sound terribly
It
funny?
sounded like a set-up letter.
Absolutely.
How do you feel about the note?
I don't think you know. I feel offended the same way. He didn't write it.
Yeah.
I feel the same way I felt when I read it. He didn't write it. That doesn't mean, that could mean any one of a number of things.
Right.
But in my mind, I don't think he wrote that note.
See,
It's not the top part of it.
Yeah, I feel the same way, although I won't be surprised if we find out that he did write it. But that still doesn't necessarily mean it's a suicide note to me.
Right.
The letter just didn't make sense. It looked
Right, well, it was not written like, it wasn't a sincere letter.
Right, it sounded like
I thought Kelly wrote it because he knew that Kurt was dead.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I felt.
Wow.
So.
That's, it's obvious that they're lying.
Yeah. Did you read the article in Us Magazine?
No.
There's an article in Us Magazine that's out now on the stands. In there's a quotation supposedly from the suicide note. It says, I can't live my life like this any longer, something to that effect, right in front of me. That's not in the suicide note. And the only people that have the information about what's in the suicide note is Courtney and me and the police, so they had to have gotten that from Courtney to the best of my knowledge, and that's not a statement that's in the suicide note, but yet it's a statement that I feel she wants people to think.
What's amazing is that they can do this,
Item number 4, the alleged suicide note. This is a copy of the note that has been widely circulating. Tom Grant suggests that only the last 4 lines indicate suicide. They read, please keep going, Courtney, for Frances, for her life which will be so much happier without me. I love you, I love you. Curiously, these lines are written in much larger characters than the rest of the note. Unsolved Mysteries asked handwriting expert Marcel Matley to compare a copy of Cobain's alleged suicide note with copies of 2 pages of lyrics handwritten by Cobain. Matley believes the bulk of the note was written by Cobain, but finds the last 4 lines questionable.
As to the last 4 lines, there are more than a dozen differences that should give us pause, and we would have to reasonably explain these differences before we can conclude that the same person wrote the 4 lines that wrote the body of it.
Handwriting expert Reginald Alton of Oxford University also compared copies of Cobain's handwriting to a copy of the note. In a 5-page written report, Alton pointed out more than a dozen discrepancies. Alton believes the bulk of the suicide note was written by Cobain, but raises questions about the first line and the last 4 lines. His report concludes, quote, there are many indications that there may have been a second hand at work.
Now, I don't know about you, but that's pretty eerie to me, like seeing her handwriting that was in a bag at a lawyer's house and then comparing it with the last 4 lines and the top. It kind of makes you think, it really feels eerie. And then when you think about the first clip, it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe there is something here. And then Dr. Cyril Wecht, who we'll get into later, my favorite forensic pathologist, and Tom Grant, who was the private investigator for Courtney Love that turned on her, they ended up looking at it 20 years later, and this is Exhibit C. So check this out.
My name is Tom Grant. I was hired by Courtney Love to find her missing husband, Kurt Cobain.
This is from like a documentary called Soaked in Bleach. Everybody should go check it out for sure.
Discovery this morning.
Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain.
Is dead.
Hiring me is not like hiring an attorney. It's not to protect you. My job is to find the truth. All kinds of red flags started popping up. She starts telling us these things that just didn't add up.
Save the American icon, Tom.
That was suspicious to me. And this woman's husband had just been found dead, and there didn't seem to be any sadness whatsoever. There was more to this than what I was being told. It's not very often that a private investigator accuses this client of committing a crime.
How can a guy accuse you of killing your husband? How come you don't sue this guy?
20 years later, I remain professionally disturbed by the way in which the Kurt Cobain case was mishandled.
They allowed his body to be cremated within 6 days. They didn't send the shotgun out for fingerprinting for 30 days.
It's entirely possible that a police officer, no matter how well trained, may not notice a particular item of evidence.
To rule the case the same day and to make a public pronouncement is absolutely unacceptable.
Peace, love, empathy. Kurt Cobain.
I examined a practice sheet that was found in Courtney Love's backpack of different letters. It did have combinations that are found in the suicide note.
Here, Courtney's own lawyer, Rosemary Carroll, the godmother of Frances Bean, telling Tom,
I think someone went through his notebook, found passages that could be cobbled together to suicide and traced them.
Kurt asked if he could have Courtney's name taken out of the will.
They were in the middle of a divorce.
If Kurt Cobain commits suicide, Courtney inherits it all.
And I can deny it all the way to the bank, and actually people will believe me if I deny it. But all publicity is good publicity to a certain degree.
How's that for a spin?
After Kurt Cobain's death was announced in the media, this phenomenon of copycat suicides began. Kurt Cobain fans, kids.
I cannot think of a case in which someone inject himself with a large amount of heroin and then proceed to kill himself. It just doesn't make sense.
Questions could be answered if the medical examiner would make public the autopsy report.
That investigation should have been handled differently. Very legitimate questions have been raised. Questions deserve answers. I would tell you right now that if I were the chief today, I would reopen this investigation.
And that was the former chief of police in that town, which is crazy. So the top motives for murder are what? Money, revenge, and rage. So Courtney Love had a lot of money to gain. So the next piece of evidence, we're going to be talking about this man, Cyril Wecht, super nice guy. I sent him a letter and I asked him to sign a piece of paper, and he sent me a business card signed to me, and Kristen's actually trying to get him on the show, which would be super amazing for me. I've always wanted to talk to him, but he 100% agrees that Kurt Cobain was murdered. So let's play this piece of evidence. We'll see what you think. Let's play it.
He helped lead a music revolution. When Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain was found dead more than 20 years ago at the age of 27, a generation lost one of its signature voices, and the questions began. Cobain's death was ruled a suicide, but now a documentary claims that he was actually murdered. Soaked in Bleach is produced by a Morgantown native and features forensic pathologist Dr. Cyril Wecht. Marty Griffin sat down with Dr. Wecht to talk about Cobain's death.
To rule the case the same day is absolutely unacceptable.
Here he is again, Dr. Cyril Wecht, this time as an expert, taking a new look at the 1994 death of Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain, the alternative rock so-called grunge singer found dead in his Seattle home in 1994. His death ruled a suicide.
This was more likely a homicide than a suicide.
If there was a John Lennon-type figure for the so-called Generation X, it would be Cobain.
The documentary film Soaked in Bleach, written and directed by a Morgantown native and an Upper St. Clair resident. The movie uses recreations and interviews to raise questions about Cobain's death.
So it just doesn't fit.
There's only one problem with that, Courtney.
What?
I looked under your pillows.
The film heavily asserts Cobain's ex-wife, Courtney Love, had something to do with his death, an allegation she strongly denies. Dr. Wecht has nothing to say about that.
I'm not accusing Courtney Love. It's not for me to do. I'm not Jack Klugman playing Quincy. I'm not a homicide detective. You know, I don't get into who. I get into what happened, when it happened, how it happened, and so on. I'll leave that to the detectives and the investigative authorities.
The body of Nirvana leader Kurt Cobain was found in a house in Seattle on Friday morning, dead of an apparently self-inflicted shotgun blast to the head.
Dr. Wecht isn't buying the suicide theory.
I just think that it's a staged suicide is what I think. That's the bottom line.
Wecht says there was enough heroin in Cobain's system to kill 5 people.
All of the drug paraphernalia was put back into his nice little cigar box. The needle was taken off the syringe, the tourniquet was taken off the arm, everything was placed back in the cigar box neatly, and then he proceeds to take a shotgun and kill himself. It's highly unlikely.
Courtney Love has threatened legal action trying to stop the release of the film.
So it's out, everybody. Check it out. It's out. So if I were a prosecutor, there'd be a defense attorney who would try to discredit my expert with another expert. But this expert just so happens to be one of the most famous, one of the smartest. You just got to check out his resume. So that's what this next piece of evidence is giving him credibility. And I feel like his resume speaks for itself. So let's play that clip.
Well, Robert Kennedy was assassinated 50 years ago.
These are all the
next
cases
week.
he's worked.
Now his son is calling for a new investigation.
Robert Kennedy Jr. met face-to-face last year with the man convicted in his father's murder and says that the gunman is falsely accused. And there is at least one other person in Pittsburgh who agrees. Ralph Iannotti reports.
Forensic pathologist and former Allegheny County coroner Dr. Cyril Wecht has long held the belief that there was a second gunman who fatally shot Senator Robert Kennedy on that June night in 1968. With Kennedy's son now calling to reopen the investigation, Dr. Wecht is hoping Americans, once and for all, will learn the truth about what happened that night in California.
The shot that killed Senator Robert Kennedy was fired 1 to 1.5 inches away from his head, just above and behind the right ear.
Dr. Cyril Wecht, at age 87, has performed and or consulted in tens of thousands of autopsies or postmortems over the past more than half a century.
Now it's on to Chicago and let's win there. Thank you, guys.
He was not directly involved in the autopsy on Robert Kennedy after the senator died in June 1968. But he was a consultant in the case to then L.A. coroner Dr. Thomas Noguchi.
Sirhan is in front of him. Sirhan shoots, bang, bang, bang. And no way, at any time, in any scenario, in any version, no matter how incredibly, wildly embellished, was Sirhan behind Robert Kennedy.
Dr. Wecht says Sirhan was never behind Senator Kennedy. That's in black and white in the autopsy report. And although the autopsy results were clearly spelled out, Sirhan's defense attorney, Grant Cooper, who died in 1990, for some reason effectively ignored that information at Sirhan's trial.
An experienced criminal defense attorney never consulted a forensic pathologist, a criminalist, a ballistics expert going into the case to review things Never had such testimony by such experts for the defense.
And Dr. Weck says the LA County coroner wasn't the only person who called him after the Kennedy assassination. Someone else reached out to him very close to the accused killer.
Well before the trial, I got a call asking me to be Sirhan's lawyer. From whom? From his mother. His mother called me and asked me if I would be her son's lawyer.
Ralph Iannotti, KDKA TV News.
To his millions of fans, Elvis Presley was simply...
So from Bobby Kennedy to Elvis.
He didn't invent rock and roll, but he did carry it into millions of living rooms around the world. Then, in August 1977, at the age of 42, the King proved that he was mortal. His death, as they say, was the end of an era, but it was also the start of an extensive cover-up. Elvis had been abusing a wide range of drugs. These included codeine, morphine, Quaalude, and so the list continues. Valium, Valmid, Placidil, Nembutal, Phenobarbital, Pentobarbital, and Butobarbital. All these drugs are downers, used to bring on relaxation and sleep. Several are addictive. The findings were confirmed and amplified by 2 other laboratories. The final step was to take the data to 2 doctors for analysis. A second opinion from Dr. Cyril Weck, one of the foremost medical examiners in the United States.
There were several drugs involved here. The principal offender in this case was codeine, which is a pain reliever, but which is known to have a CNS depressant effect. Other drugs included Valium, a tranquilizer, Valmid, a sedative, Placidil, a sedative, Phenobarbital, a sedative, and Butobarbital, a sedative. It's incredible, really, that all these drugs should have been given to the patient simultaneously. There was one other drug involved, methoqualone, which is a tranquilizer.
We've been joined by Dr. Cyril Wecht, who's a certified forensic pathologist. He's the coroner of the city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County. In addition to that, he's also a professor of law and pathology. He's formerly the president of the American College of Legal Medicine, and he's now the director of the Institute of Forensic Scientists. He's one of a handful of physicists, or physicians, I should say, who've actually seen the autopsy photographs and x-rays of the late president. Welcome, Dr. Weck. Now,
thank you.
First of all, to establish your credentials, if any establishment is necessary other than reading your resume, how many autopsies have you performed?
I have performed around 7,500 autopsies and have directed, supervised, or reviewed perhaps another 10,000 over the past 18 years or so.
I want to make one thing clear before we go on. It's the question of the single bullet theory. Briefly, to summarize, if the president and Governor Conley were wounded by 2 separate bullets, that leads to the conclusion that there were 2 assassins because of the difficulty in operating that rifle. If, in fact, they were hit by the same bullet, by a single bullet, that leads great weight to the Warren Commission's finding that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. How would you characterize the autopsy performed on President Kennedy?
As one of the most incomplete, superficial, incompetent medical legal autopsies that I have ever seen. Let me say, without any reference at this point to what one believes about the conclusions of the Warren Commission, there is no question at all among forensic pathologists and other forensic scientists that this autopsy is absolutely unbelievable. That this should have been done in the United States of America on the most important medical legal autopsy in the history of our country and possibly in the world in this fashion still staggers the imagination, and after all these years I find it hard to believe that it did happen.
The pictures of that autopsy. Of course, if the autopsy had been scientifically adequate, this obscene speculation that's been going on about the president's body would have been silenced. We can't redo the autopsy, but there were photographs taken and x-rays, and you're one of the few people who are given access to those documents.
The documents show many things which are set forth in the autopsy report. I do find many things with which I agree. There are a lot of things that are not in controversy. The more important things, perhaps, Mr. Rivera, are the items that are missing from the National Archives. And this is something that, unfortunately, too many Americans don't know. They have no way of knowing. The president's brain was not buried with the body. It was quite properly saved, placed in formalin to be fixed,
so that it could be examined 2 weeks later. You see, in a fresh, traumatized state, it would literally fall apart in your hands, and you could not trace the tracks of the bullets or bullet fragments. You fix it in formalin, and then you go back 2 weeks later, and you serially section it, and then you get a classic demonstration of the pathways of a bullet or bullet fragments. On December 7th, 1963, the pathologist did go back to the brain, and it is so listed in a supplemental report in the 26-volume set. And the final sentence regarding the brain says, coronal sections, that's side to side, coronal sections of the brain are not made in order to preserve the specimen. Okay? They don't say for whom, but it wasn't for me, because the brain is no longer there at the National Archives. The microscopic tissue slides, which were made of the so-called wounds of entrance and the so-called wounds of exit, which may or may not be exit and entrance as they believe. Those slides, which they do refer to in their supplemental autopsy report, are no longer at the National Archives. Special sections made of the brain are no longer at the National Archives, and Kodachromes of the interior chest of the president, so that we could learn more about the wounds of the neck, the wounds of the back, the trajectory of the bullet, etc., what structures might have been damaged. Those Kodachromes are missing. So probably the four most important items of hard physical forensic pathology evidence regarding the autopsy on the President of the United States are missing.
Where'd they go?
No, they're very clever, you see. They don't get themselves into a Watergate bind. They don't say that they have been lost. They don't say that they are destroyed, and they don't say that you can't see them. They simply say, we do not know where they are.
What about that headshot? I want to show the film again from Zapruder's frame, approximately 3:12 onward. Let's talk about that last shot, because the president's head was whipped back. So at the risk of horrifying you again, I want to show that film. So the president, there's the headshot. The head blows off, and the president's head goes violently backward. There's the backward motion.
This was the first time it was shown on
Everyone who saw it
TV
at home all
ever.
said that the bullet appeared to come from the front, and that's why the head was whipped back that way.
The only thing I can say to that from a forensic pathology standpoint is that the movement of the body is much more consistent with a shot coming in much further down on the side than the alleged site of Lee Harvey Oswald or anybody else from the southeast corner of the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository.
Interesting, right where I think that the shooter was. He reminds me a lot of my dad because he makes it so easy to understand something that might be difficult to most people. And I really wish he would take a look at my dad's autopsy so he could really see what happened to him. But now every great prosecutor, I'm not a prosecutor, but I'm trying to be in this history. Every great prosecutor demonstrates how they think the crime happened, because his wife will say, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, I never did it. So I made, for one of my music videos called Kurt Cobain, it's actually the song that actually I got my following from. It's very explicit, but I snuck in there a video where I play Kurt Cobain and I show exactly what I think happened. So that's what this final clip is about, and you let me know after this if you think we're gonna have to blur that out, or if he was murdered. So check this out.
And this is the story as we know it so far. Reportedly been missing for about 6 days, dead of an apparently self-inflicted shotgun blast to the head. Police found what is said to be a suicide note at the scene, but have not yet divulged its contents.
It was obvious this man is dead from a shotgun wound to the head. Now, there was a suicide note left inside the house.
Okay, so Opa and Jacob, the jury, what do you guys think?
I think it's a good walkthrough of the things that make you suspicious of supposed, like both looking at the Kurt Cobain case and the JFK situation. It makes me think that if people are aware of how they cover evidence up by saying, oh, we just don't know where it is, then you can start to see the red flags when it comes to ongoing supposed alleged cases.
So do you think he decided?
It really does seem like allegedly somebody else possibly a lover, could have had some role in his death.
What about you, Opa?
Guilty.
Courtney's guilty? I mean, the lady's guilty?
Guilty.
All right, well, you guys let me know at home what you guys think. If she would be in a court of law innocent or guilty based on I'm not a lawyer, so based on my evidence. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and that's all I got for history. Jake, you got some memes for me today?
Yeah, I got a few.
Looking forward to it. Let's meme me up.
I know you're a little younger than I am. I've adopted the attitude of the great Negro Leagues, went on to become Negro.
Meme me up.
All right. I thought this was super cool and interesting. Apparently, in the ancient Persian Empire, it was customary for men to debate significant ideas twice, once sober and once while drunk. This practice ensured that an idea had to be convincing in both states before being adopted. This unique method of decision-making underscores the importance the Persians placed on wisdom and thoroughness in their deliberations, aiming to achieve balanced and effective outcomes in their governance. Oh, man. So let me convince you now, and now let me get you drunk and convince you again. Oh, man. Sometimes it's not the devil, guys. It is just the decision. But sometimes it is the devil, you know. So this is apparently how we make America great again. It reminds me of the Hillary for Prison 2016 slogan.
Yep. That'd be great.
I was walking down the street this morning and I was hit by a violin, then a clarinet, and then a French horn. I think it was an orchestrated attack. Reject modernity. Embrace tradition. No lab-grown meat for me, right?
Yep.
This is, always on the lookout for treasures when I find another rock to take home. How to save money and have fun as an adult.
Yep.
Yeah, so true. All right, stop overthinking. If it's God's will, it'll happen, and nothing will stop it. If it's not, he has a better plan. Have peace in knowing that. What a good reminder. I wanted to go jogging, but Proverbs 28:1 says, "The wicked run when no one is chasing them." So there's that. Another good excuse for not getting my physical into shape. Costume party. What are you? A harp. Your costume's too small to be a harp. Are you calling me a liar? Okay. Before you commit to adopting a puppy, please remember that there are 3 phases of development. 0 to 4 months, super cute. 4 to 24 months, raptor phase. And then 2 years plus, pretty awesome dogs. Right? Please plan accordingly. So
Cats
true.
are good all the time, so I don't know what you're talking about.
The house plant in your kitchen watching you put water in the coffee maker. Oh, give me water. Oh, boy. Here's an obvious sign. Library is closed until opening time. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll just regularly appear back waiting for the door to open. These posts were removed because somebody took offense. Uh-oh. Man, so much dry, just dad humor. Thank you guys for your attention. Here's some cool cars Opa sent over. And these some interesting ones. Man, that one is
that Sean
really
Connery?
cool. Probably
Opa? Oh, it looks like a Bond car.
It kind of does look like a Bond car. That's probably the smallest door to a car I've ever seen.
It's a race car. It's got a number on the back.
60.
Wow. All right, here's another one. Home of laxative bromoquinine. What a great thing to be proud of.
We should make a T-shirt that says that.
Home of laxative bromoquinine.
I don't even know what that means, but it'd be good on a
don't
shirt.
either.
People would wear it.
Here was a super cool one. If I found this in a junkyard, you guarantee I'm buying that and making it a project vehicle, because that thing looks like the speed racer from Star Wars. It's sweet.
Yeah, that is cool.
All right, last cool picture of the week. Rednecks after they raid Area 51.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's all this week.
All right, Jake. Yeah, everybody go check out Jake's game. And if we reach that goal, I think I just decided I might or might not get a mullet. Opa has his finger up. Yeah, everybody go check out Jake's game and meet us over on Discord right after this is over. And I'll leave the link to that too. And if we reach Jake's goal, if Jake reaches his goal, I might get a mullet for you, man. I might mullet for you.
Oh, man, I would be honored to be the cause of a mullet in this world. I mean,
that'd be cool.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I hope the game makes it to get full funded, and it should ship mid-summer, and I'm really excited for you guys to get your hands on it.
Yeah, and I know everybody wants to support it, so... But thank you for another great current news and memes as always. Opa, thank you for another great Opa's Corner. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and stay awake, not woke, subscribe, and stay tuned. If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe, and also share with others so that we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We couldn't do this show without you, so I just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
you